I'm delighted to be able to come here and talk to you just about how to use social when you're trying to sell abroad, trying to look at how you take your business and make it stand out, because social's a massive part of it. I've kind of added the theme about future school because you've really got to get the future school. If you're going to be selling into these schools that are being created, that are evolving and then transforming, you really got to understand how they're transforming, because you've got to be able to fit your product or your service or whatever it is into that school. And it doesn't matter whether a UK school, actually whether an international school. We currently sell in about 16 countries to different private schools all around the world. We're a marketing agency. You want to stand out, you have to stand out. You know, there's too much noise and there's too much everything going on. The point is, and the thing with technology here, thank you. The thing we get carried away with, and the things that we always worry about, is that we talk about HD augmented 3D social geotag stuff as if it's now or it's a future. Actually, this is the past, it's happened. And I don't know what your businesses are and what you're trying to do in terms of a niche and trying to be different and stand out. But the thing with schools as well is that they're very resistant and slow to change. And so you've got to change mindsets. And if you're trying to sell a product or trying to sell a service into a school abroad as well, they're actually more innovative than the UK. And so if you haven't tried it anyway, they're actually keen to try new things. So we need to kind of get this piece here. And the problem we've got with social, and the problem is with schools, is that schools aren't transforming the way that their kids are trying to educate or trying to learn. So these are the top 10 schools that employers are looking for when kids are leaving school now. So 2016, you can see the skills. It's all about complex problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity. The reason I show you this slide is that because if you're targeting a market and you're trying to sell something in, you've got to start to understand who that market's going to be. Not just a market now, but what's that market going to transform and be? You know, our digital natives that we have around us, our kids, what the schools are doing, unfortunately, they're way behind in terms of understanding it. So when we start to look at this, we've got to start to adjust ourselves and go, what are we doing in this space? Are we creative? Are we helping with these things? And that's the sort of stuff that we're trying to do. The future school is something of a concept that I talk around the world on, and actually it's quite fascinating. I'm a father of 4, and I look at schools and go, oh my God, you know, you're not really preparing my children for a world I cannot imagine. And so the thing is, when you start to look at future schools, this is the picture, and the picture's not been changed for 50, 60 years. We're in a technology show, hilariously, buying technology. And actually what we forget is that at the end of every transaction or interactions that you're ever going to have, it's all about people. And so we talk about this, and technology, big data, environment, behavior, you're all involved in that, whether it's a service, whether it's a piece of technology. This is really perfect harmony. Actually, they should all be aligned. But the biggest problem we've got is that we spend too much money and too much time on technology. We buy technology, schools buy technology, and it's a great idea, but unfortunately, it fails because of people. You're all familiar with Airbnb and all the other great disruptive brands because you're obviously all trying to grow a business internationally. They've transformed that because they've got people. They've not got technology. Technology came second. And so what we've got to start to do is, the reality is this, and it's a real shame because schools are spending a lot of money on technology and they fail, and then they lose heart in your brand because, by the way, they bought a box with a label on it. Let's buy VLE. Great idea. It's going to solve all my virtual learning things. Wrong. Decide what the people side is, and you've really got to do it. Because when we look at the technology revolution that you're all part of, is that over the last 150 years we've seen some amazing inventions. But the problem is that we've had, like, the World Wide Web has suddenly landed on our doorsteps. We all can't live without it. You know, how many of you are struggling for 3G, 4G here? Yeah, why? You think, wow, we're in the middle of London. This is brilliant. No, why? Because technology. You know, they haven't really enabled the network and the cell for us to be able to do it. So when we start to think about technology and how that's worked, are you all familiar with Moore's Law? This is how things transform. As Moore's Law dictates that technology will double in power and half in size every 18 months. So you can see from the early printing press to where we are with social and geo and VR and the stuff that's in this show, it's ridiculous. So we can see transformation in terms of technology, but the thing that's really failing is that we haven't evolved fast enough. And if your business is going to be successful, you've got to get people. And if you look at it from a people perspective, what you'll find is that will make a massive difference to the way that schools understand it, because they understand that you're trying to fit a problem. You know, good example. You know, we're all familiar with this. We've all become sedentary. We all sat down. But this is reality, as it comes down here. We look at the evolution of the desk, and, if you're trying to fit into this model, there's a metaphor here where we're sitting around, we're organising things, and the desk is transformed from this idea that we're kind of going, everything's physical and location-based, to actually everything's on an app. And if I let this run, you'd see that suddenly, as you're all familiar with, it's all on our phones. Our kids' phones, teachers' phones, suppliers' phones. Everyone has the power in their pockets as they do it. And there's lots of future tech. We're at the tech show. But I don't care much about tech at this point, because the biggest bit we've got to worry about is actually how do we tell the story. You've got to stand out. And people don't understand social media. Are you all on social? Are you all tweeting? How many of you tweet for a business? Okay, all of your hands should be up. Yeah? You should all be tweeting. There's a conversation happening. You should be doing live streams. You should be understanding authenticity and content. And there's a session tomorrow that I'm on a panel with, which is all about content strategies. It's about authenticity. Actually, how do you make your brand stand out? And I'm going to show you some examples later because it's quite fascinating. But the biggest failing we have right now is that we've got a misunderstanding with social media. Does anyone know the difference between social media and social networking? No, we bundle it all up in one go and go, oh, it's just social media. No, well, social media is very defined. Social media is this. It's kind of digital communication of sharing content, like YouTube's a great idea of a social media channel. Is it really good for, for publications? No. Is it great for audio? No. Is it great for video? Absolutely. What about Pinterest? What about SoundCloud? These are distinct channels that create communities that are very good at delivering content. So if you think about what you're offering, and if you offer a certain type of content that you need to get out there, you need to be leveraging the right social media channel. Doesn't all go down Facebook. Doesn't all go down Twitter. Doesn't go down LinkedIn. What about Instagram? How many of you tried Instagram? Instagram stories, is it working? What about Snapchat stories? Every child is on streaks, but are we trying to target a child or are we trying to target the purchaser? And the social network is really about sharing social media. These are the big three. Facebook's my private place where I share social media. So I'll find a video that I like and it'll be for my private group. LinkedIn is professional, so I will still use YouTube clips, but I'll share professional things, or I might take my blog and put it different places. And sort of Twitter sits in the middle. The difference between a good tweet and a bad tweet is about 500,000 people. And this is where people get it wrong, is you don't spend enough time going, how can I do this effectively? So what you do is you start to put stuff out there. We're on Twitter, #happy, #Friday, #who gives a. It really doesn't work. We've got to think, if I'm going to do this, I can't be a busy fool, and we're all quite busy because I'm on it, or you feel like it's a burden. Oh, I've got to do it because my kids say it, or this says it, and I'm on Twitter. So when we start to get into the next stage of things, when we look at it, is that the environment in which you're selling is transforming too. We've got this idea of smart cities, smart homes, Internet of Things. Everything's connected. And when you go around here, there are things that are connected, talking, ordering new things. Schools are going to be just like this. And so is your market and is your kind of product or service fitting with this? You've got to be quite evangelistic and go, this is where it's going to go. It's going to be connected. And if your product is not connecting in some way and making it useful and easy, it's not going to work. Because you've got to stand out, and people want this idea that this thing is connected. Virtual learning, kids will access anything. It's going to be pick and mix education. We will not have schools that have 4 walls. We'll just have these virtual classrooms that kids can pick and mix their education they want. I want to do science 1 minute. Actually, I want to become a robot engineer. I might actually become a doctor. Whatever it is, they'll pick and mix it. And so this digital natives that we as adults kind of take for granted or misunderstand is because we bury our heads and go, oh my God, social media, what is it? And why is our kid, I inherited a 13-year-old daughter. When I say I inherited it, she turned 13 6 months ago. Woo, my life's changed, from a social point of view. But you've got to understand why people are doing it to be effective in any social channel. Social media is not going to go away. I've got videos and I'll share some stuff on Twitter and you can access some of the resources, but it's not going to go away. You have to leverage these channels. If you want to get reach will happen. We did a tweet here. The reason I had the Stormtrooper here is we did standout marketing. We called ourselves a digital Jedi. We thought, let's rock up here. How are we going to get noticed in a thing that's got 5 football fields big? Well, let's just put a guy in a stormtrooper and walk him around with a selfie frame and they selfie it. We've had 100,000 impressions over 24 hours. Will it lead to leads? Will it sell what I do? Yeah, probably. But also we've got to mix up what we're doing, so you've got to try and think how you stand up. But this is where the confusion lies. It's because we kind of look at this social landscape and go, OMG, there's so much going on. I don't know what the hell it all means. And you're not expected to know it. What you do need to know is that when you kind of look at social media, it really sits into 3 distinct areas. And you've got to understand where you sit in there. You kind of got the listening side. You know, there's lots of telemetric data. How many of you got Fitbits or smartwatches? I can see. You know, it tells me how many steps I've done. Brilliant. How many of you use that to analyze your life and your diet and how often you wake up? No, we're curious, like, oh, I did a few more steps. Oh, it told me to stand up 12 times a day. I hit my target. It's becoming self-rewarding because we like to be liked and rewarded. That's why it works. That's an innate human trait more than anything else that's around. But the thing with all this is that there's an immense amount of data being analysed. You've got to use it. So you think about it, all this stuff. Google don't even know what they're doing with it. We don't even know what we're doing with it. The point is you've got to record it and capture it. The next piece, and I don't know whether your businesses or services are all about learning platforms, you're then contributing to the social noise. So that's the stuff that's just being recorded. There's a lot of data overload. In this segment here, it's all about what are you creating? Is it good content? So you're contributing to this space. The next billion-dollar businesses, and I hope one of yours is this, it sits in here. It's about adaptation. The reason Netflix works, the reason Airbnb works, the reason all these great businesses have disrupted the marketplaces because they've got this space right. They have adapted the content or the experience that's out there, and they've delivered it in a usable, easy, friendly way. Pinterest is a curation tool. They've not done anything amazing. They took a real-life metaphor and went, people like pinning things. When I navigate the web, it's bloody difficult to go, I like that image. So they took a real-life thing that is innate in us, and they made it easy. So they built technology around it. So the big spaces right now, Netflix, never existed. Suddenly, we know that that's a curator of films and TV shows, and now they're becoming publishers themselves, where they're starting to create it. So you need to kind of get that bit right and understand where you're doing it. But most businesses and schools, so we do this in schools, so we do a lot of social strategy. We want schools to get effective. Is you need a social strategy or a content strategy. The first thing you need to do is go off to every single channel and make sure that you reserve every single handle that exists across Pinterest, Snapchat, SoundCloud, Instagram, doesn't matter what, because your digital handle is more valuable than your URL. Yeah? URLs are passé. You never turn on an advert or read and see a URL that goes, by the way, log on to www.nike.com/air trainers. It's not. It's hashtag this or discover that, because they're trying to build a community. They have no power. The brands have no power. You've got to start to think about hashtag strategies. So we are called the Digital Jedi. It's pretty obvious, right? Well, it's not really obvious. We're Jedi. We sell digital marketing. Let's call ourselves Digital Jedi. It gives me an excuse to go and buy a stormtrooper, you know? But you've got to start to think, okay, how can I own hashtags? How can I brand hashtags so that I can start to build threads and conversations? Next time you log on or walk around the show, you'll start to see there's a lot of these around. How many of you engage with it? Probably not many. But when you turn on the TV and when you turn on an app, everything's about trying to get you to be, because we're all innately like, oh, curious. TV's become radio, yeah? We never end up watching TV till the end. Why? Because we're distracted by the thing in our pocket called a device. It might beep, it might be Amazon. Oh, it knows me better than me, it's telling me what I need. Before long, I've gone off and had a random experience doing different things. But you need to remember that you've got to start to create some authentic, interesting content. I'll give you some examples. So every year we set up something 4 years ago called Social Advent to schools, because we want to encourage them to get into a content strategy mindset. In other words, how can I create content easily by planning it and thinking about it? And you've got to do the same. So we called it Social Advent. 25 days, 25 tasks, they can get on and do it. You know, it's not really selling. We sell marketing and websites, and by the way, we do social media. This is not selling websites or marketing. This is just saying, look, we're going to give you something that you can go and do. We also start to share content. So in your spaces, can you start to write content that's interesting and valuable to your customer? Not selling a website. Quite a good bit of engagement. but someone at that ecosystem within a school might recommend us, or might go, oh, these guys, they might land on our Twitter page and they see that we sell websites and we sell social media. Nothing about website, nothing. We're just creating content. We want to create content that's relevant to our target community, that we know somewhere might influence a decision. We then try to curate this, and we build up a following. And what we start to do is that you start to deliver things, or your social things, through newsletters. You start to build this up. Maybe, you know, none of this is about selling. None of it. At the bottom, by the way, it sells. But no one ever gets to the bottom. We just put it on there. Because we know that if we can provide valuable stuff, so if you're selling, say, 3D printers, I want you to be writing about the next technology, all the stuff to do with it, why it's important. Give me some case studies. Show me some videos. By the way, your brand's all over it. And then, by the way, when they get round to it, the purchasing decisions are a lot easier. Every now and then, look, we promote what we do. Look at the engagement. Low. But we do. Engagement. Low. Why? People don't want to be sold to. Social's all about authenticity. You cannot sell. We need to put it out there, and it's subliminal. So actually, this works at a very different level than it does. I'm not looking for retweets and things. Look at our most phenomenal tweet ever. Interactive schools, they sell websites, social media, creative marketing. That's what it says. No, it doesn't. It says, look, isn't that fascinating? You'll find that really interesting. As a school, they'll start to share it. They'll talk about it. They'll say, who are these guys? All right, we're thinking about doing a website. Well, let's contact these guys. Let's invite them in. We just found a really great example. That's a great example of something so simple. No hashtags, no nothing. But as we start to put content up there, you know, this is what's called an internet minute. There's an enormous amount going up there. And you've got to make sure that you're not contributing noise. And it's very easy to be on all these channels, tweeting and doing on Instagram and doing these things with no effective kind of plan or content strategy. What's the output? And whether or not your audience are all on it. And you shouldn't be on all channels. Everyone worries about being on every single channel. Absolutely not. I'm not on every channel. I haven't got time. I choose the ones that are going to be most effective to me as a person, and same as a business. You know, we're on Facebook. We don't use Facebook. Because why? Because schools aren't going to go to Facebook to try and find our product. They're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and other communications. Because the worry is this, is that you start to contribute to it, and your end user, we're all going to suffer from this, by the way. This isn't just you trying to sell. This is us. This is everybody. We are going to hit this cavity, which is going to be called content shock, where there's far too much information that's unstructured. We can't get to information. We can't find information. So what we do as well is that we use something. Have any of you heard of Clout? It's like a social ranking tool. Well, we built something similar called Social Candy, and it just focuses on Twitter because we want effectiveness. And the idea here is that you've got to measure it. It's a bit like a Google rank, but if you're going to be on social, are you effective? You know, am I getting retweeted? You know, that's equity. We call it social equity. A like, a retweet, a mention, that gives you social equity. And the way a kind of a ranking works is that if I put out a tweet, for example, and I got retweeted by people on a social ranking of 1, and I got 1,000 ones, that wouldn't really give me much equity because they don't hold much equity themselves. Yeah, if I tweeted out, and we've done it, and we've got retweets day and night from Bett, brilliant. They have a high social ranking. So you can see here, this is where our social equity is at the moment. 1 to 100, we're at 60. Bett Show, 69. So any time that they retweet anything or like anything, they give you social equity. It's a trusted kind of source. UKTI, where are they? 71, absolutely. Any endorsement so you've got to think clever. So when you're starting to construct your tweets, when you're starting to construct your marketing and do everything, think about who you might want to mention or copy in who might be interested in. UKTI, Trade Government UK, are very interested in your story. So again, when you construct it, you must mention them. And if you mention them, they know that you've mentioned them. And they might just give you a simple like, but that's 71% worth of their equity coming your way. Yeah? And that's the start point. So you've got to start to do it. I don't want this hashtag happy, hashtag great day, hashtag look what I had for breakfast. No one cares. You know, if you look and do your research, look at what the really popular hashtags are. EdTech, round here it's BettChat and Bet 2017. Know the difference between using each one. because you can overload different ones as well as you do it. So as you kind of look at this balance here that we're talking about, all of these things I said have got to work in perfect harmony, but the big bit that we lead with, but I finish with, is about people. And you all know, being adults, if you've got kids as well, it's easier to do that. And I'm afraid if you're selling into schools, they're even easier at doing that. You want to go and show innovation, you want to do transformation, you want to do change, and you've got some great thing. At the end of every transaction is a person. And the problem is most of those people are adults, and most of them are parents. And when it comes to social media particularly, and that's been our struggle, is that they don't get it. They don't get it, and they'd rather go, it's bad, without going, actually it's a really powerful education tool as well as anything else. How many of you got the user guide, by the way, when the internet came out? Anyone? No? Isn't it funny? We kind of got the most powerful tool that's ever been invented, given to everybody for nothing, just for a laugh, and expect us all to be brilliant at it. Then Google came along, and with the first disruptor, because they took AOL, they took all the other Yahoos, which were dashboard kind of crazy, lots of stuff going on, and they went, let's put in a box. A simple box. You type anything into that box, and guess what? You are going to get anything you want. Wow, this is magic, really? I type in I get any answer. No. They're a corporate search engine, so they're very good for selling cheap flights, getting cheap accommodation, getting things. From an education point of view, again, if you're trying to find a niche, you've got to try and find a way to bridge this sort of content. Because that's a bit, I spoke with a Harvard professor last year, and he said that 99% of school leavers do not know how to Google. How many of you have used advanced search on Google? A few. It's rubbish. Yeah, it's because we're lazy by design. This is the person side. This is why this whole bit is why I talk about the people side, is it's got to work. And so if you think about the way we've kind of communicated, when I set up my agency 15 years ago, people could be bought. You spend enough money with a brand, go in the channels that existed, it's dead easy. But the problem is that the communication was always one way. And the kind of communication world we're living in is that communication's two-way. It's collaborative, it's educational. You need to provide the value. And are you doing that? It's quite resource intensive sometimes because you've got to have clear content. It's got to be, engaging, authentic, and useful. But brands hold no power. You have to build a community if you want reach, and that takes time. Don't think you can get there overnight, but you've got to start to slowly build a community of values that you think are right for you. And it may not be just on what you're selling. It might be something slightly different, but that's the following you get. So for us, we do a lot around social, we do a lot of content strategy stuff. But ultimately, I want to sell them all a high-end website and a high-end marketing strategy. That's what we want to sell. So we go about it a different way because we know we can't just go straight out and tell them. Yes, the world's changed, people looking at their phones. Are you trying to compete and get into people's pockets? I said about multi-paradigm, our kids and everybody else, TV's become radio, and no longer are we kind of just content about living the event. We have to live the event, record the event, relive the event. But is there anything wrong with that? I mean, how many of you look back through photos? Every single one of us. Why? It's personal, it's memory. So there's no different here. Actually, the kids of today and also the schools today, they're capturing stuff on a huge scale that is exciting. When we all get older, we're kind of on our deathbed, you've got to look back how much money you've got and what you did. No, you've got to look back and go, I remember that memory, I remember that memory, I remember that memory. So content is the really crucial piece when we do it. A lot of when we targeting schools is that they were resistant to getting into social at the time is because they're worried about the negativity. Oh, but what if someone says something bad about me? I'm afraid someone's going to say something bad about you, and it will happen online, and it will happen in social. I mean, how many of you gone and complained online or in social because you've had a bad train journey, or the restaurant was rubbish, or the airport was... We've all done it. You had a bad experience, the first place I go. Yeah. But the reality is that communities thrive on positive stories, so you've got to add positivity. You've got to add something value. And actually, the more you do it around those schools, we find that schools are really brilliant places if you can add into that ecosystem that they thrive on. So the reality is this, and it's a disappointing reality, and it's quite a hard thing, because I come to a kind of a technology education show, and I say, look, you're wasting your money on technology, and yet you're here probably trying to sell technology. I'm telling you, the only way you're going to have any stickiness and longevity is by getting this balance right, and the balance has got to be through the user side. So we look at it like this. you have to look at the end user. Think about the people, your target audience, your customer. Think about how they may use it as well. Whatever your product or service is. Behavior, get people, get why we've changed, depending on your demographic. The next thing is look at the environment in which you're trying to deliver it in. You know, that's the place. Is it connected? How's that going to work on a modern infrastructure? So if you're trying to sell an app, you know, what kind of app is it? Is it ubiquitous? Is it a web app? Is it a native app? What kind of bandwidth does it need? You know, we're trying to trial 360 immersive real-time live video. The thing that struggles right now is we do not have bandwidth. Technology's there, but bandwidth isn't. Then you look at technology and go, okay, this is what the users want. This is how we can deliver it in the environment. Now let's choose the best technology to deliver that. And within that technology, you'll have your content, and that flows through this. Yeah? And it'll flow all the different ways that you go through it, but that's it. So if you're selling content, make sure you start at the bottom. Yeah? If you're selling product and technology, make sure you start at the bottom. Because unless you get it right with the people, it will fail. And I've seen so many schools that they've bought so much technology and it failed because no training, different levels of staff, but it's the human aspect because they've bought a piece of tech without thinking about the training. So I'll leave this with you and then I'll open it up for some questions. You know, what does this future school look like? Because this is where you've got to get your mindset. If you're going to sort of delve into social, you're going to delve into any kind of technology, you've got to position yourself where the future is going. Not now, but where it's going to go. And you've got to make sure you're trajecting and taking a gamble. But what I tell schools is this, is when they're starting to look at it, and businesses, is the future school needs to correlate absolutely with the future world. Yeah? Don't look at what we're doing, look at what our kids are doing. Look at what they're absolutely doing. Unfortunately, education is very slow because it's run by adults. Yeah? If we flip that and it was run by children, we'd actually have a much better kind of way of getting technology out there. Absolutely, it's up to you. This is exciting. If you're all starting off in your venture or you're established, you're trying to grow abroad, do you know what? You just got to be authentic. Get out there, be positive, try new things. I was asked to leave two things, two kind of takeaway points for this thing. The first thing is you need to think about a content strategy, and I'm on a panel tomorrow about, I think it's about 1 o'clock, 1:30. It's all about content strategies, what's worked for other businesses as well. So if you are around tomorrow, do come to that. Content strategy is all about going, what am I going to say in what channel, how often and when? We find a lot of people, you fit it in to when it's about, when it's right for you. So it may be 10 o'clock at night when you finally finished, the kids are in bed, you've sat down, you've got a glass of wine, you've gone, I need to tweet. And you go and tweet. What's the point? All your followers are asleep. You know, the lifespan of a tweet is about 5 minutes, so what's the point? So you've got to start to use tools. There's lots of tools for monitoring and scheduling. Get clever. Pre-do it, yeah? Because you know you're going to be busy with your lives. But be authentic, yeah? Really, really crucial, you know? Don't oversell to anybody because they won't buy it. You know, find a good reason, a human reason to do it.